Looking at the dimension of waste in a 10X community, it's important to begin by acknowledging that in a healthy ecology, there is no waste. The word waste might be better described as that which the human beings who created something out of an ecological resource do not know what to do with. In other words, if the human beings who create a product out of a natural ecology know what to do with all aspects of the product over its lifetime, there is no waste. There's simply energy in a useful form. And so part of the real challenge comes in understanding that it's a low level of consciousness to invent and create energy that then one doesn't know what to do with. We created this. We don't know what to do with it. So rather than call that a dysfunctional cult, we then call that which we don't know what to do with waste. So it is, in many ways, a metric of intelligence. Everything is energy. A highly competent cult can put all forms of energy into a format that's useful, that creates well-being. An incompetent cult cannot. And by that particular metric, the United States is perhaps the most incompetent cult in the history of the planet, as illustrated by the fact that a 200-pound body, on average, will generate 100 tons or 200,000 pounds of stuff that body doesn't know what to do with, and neither does his or her cult. So it goes in a landfill or an incinerator. So this is tackled in a couple of ways. One, by designating a person with the primary responsibility of healing the idea of waste. There is no waste. There is simply energy in formation. Waste is the word we've given to stuff we can't figure out what to do with. But just because we can't figure out what to do with it doesn't mean it's not useful ecologically and otherwise. It just means we're not intelligent enough to know what the uses are and to put it to that use. So having someone track this whole thing gives insight into the cult, and it also helps create the goal, which would be of taking the 200,000 pounds of waste for the average American and reducing that down to, for a start, 20,000 pounds of waste over a lifetime, using the 10X model. So tracking the waste that comes onto the land, the goal is to reduce 90% of waste as a first iteration, and also to transform the focus of waste or garbage into, to shift the focus away from the object to the paradigm and the cult. Because as soon as you establish that something is garbage, you've invented something that isn't real. In an intelligent framework, all energy is useful for something. And you've shifted the focus away from the lack of intelligence in one's paradigm and protocol to an object. One has, in a sense, externalized one's defect. As soon as you name something as, quote, garbage, then you've renamed the problem, which is we don't know what to do with this stuff. That's the real problem. To it's flawed. And that's not something you can fix. You can't fix something that is inherently worthless or in the way or, quote, garbage. What you can fix is the idea of garbage by questioning why it is that, quote, the most advanced cults create lots of stuff they don't know what to do with. How exactly is that advanced? So by reworking the issue, the problem can be tackled. Now, a single person being accountable and in dialogue, a point person, elevates the goal. And it should be noted that this kind of thing becomes hypercritical when we're talking about a moon base or a Mars colony. As long as we are willing to spend large sums of time, money, and resources digging big holes in the ground and putting things in that don't decompose for thousands of years, it's not terribly urgent because, we are comfortable with massively inefficient systems. But when it costs $100,000 to bring 50 kilograms of stuff to Mars, then, within the paradigm of capitalism, then it becomes more important. And so these things need to be iterated and developed on Earth before they are copied and exported. All food is composted on site. All energy is generated on site. This is a useful protocol. All vehicles are electric because electricity can be generated on site. Working with plastic in a couple of different ways, it can be shredded into something that becomes useful insulation. It can also be useful as packing materials. And we can create, potentially, we might be able to create some of the water membranes on top of some of, for example, buried domes. If you can find the right mix of fine shredding and the right mix of heat to create a somewhat flexible, low-baked product that gets spread on a cement roof and then lightly melted so that to create a waterproof membrane before burying in dirt. This type of technology, there is a tremendous amount of plastic being shipped around the world that people don't know what to do with. And so it's highly useful to start, just if you look at the template of Hobbit-like architecture. So the most energy efficient shape, if you're not building with square wood, if you're building, whether it's with rammed earth or cement, is actually dome-like shapes. These are stronger. Now, if you have buried dome shapes covered in recycled plastic, in a recycled plastic membrane, and then buried, and then becoming part of a living roof, you achieve so many things at once. You improve the aesthetic of the landscape, you reduce the carbon footprint, you reduce the cooling bill, you reduce the heating bill, you increase the sense of space because the living space is more underground, and you provide a functional use for all the recycled plastic. And so there's a lot of things to explore and iterate in that arena. And so, another part of creating balance, this is, part of it is planting trees, composting, and then finally bringing a lot of things onto the community site itself, having a hairdresser who cuts everyone's hair. But also, the more functional things there are of this nature, I personally do not know any place I would rather visit if I was out in the, quote, conventional world and lived within an hour of such a community. To go there and deal with the cooler, calmer vibe, have one's hair done with people who are actually present, where you don't have to, get a parking space for this, then drive over to this, but to, have a meal, have a massage, get one's hair done, soak in the hot tub, look at beautiful art, possibly take a class, possibly listen to a speech, possibly attend a cuddle party, and then, head home with some fresh baked breads and organic vegetables from the garden. I mean, there are few days where something so enriching and productive can all take place. And so, having a $50 pass to come on site and then, doing these things, it's tremendously enriching and brings currency into the community. A couple of protocols around this. All things brought on the land are accounted for using the app. So just the fact that you have to take a quick photo and note and send to the coordinator what's brought on site brings increased awareness. And then part of the job of every community member, but also the waste managing specialist, is to create best practices for each of the things that are brought on site. So if someone is bringing tampons on site, for example, to manage bleeding and menstruation, etc., then the question for the waste person is, what is the very best way for putting that energy back into a useful form? You've got blood, you've got perhaps cotton, and then paper. So what is that? Does that enrich and bring nitrogen to a compost? Is that suitable for edible compost? Is that better for forestation compost? And protocols can then be developed for every item. A breakdown of all ingredients used in all things in their manufacturing process is important. All community projects that help generate healthy air are monitored to offset all purchases. So, the goal is the more energy you consume that creates CO2, the more energy one consumes to buy or plant trees and forests, so that there's a sense of accountability, that the full cost is shared. Anytime someone wants to get rid of something useful, they list it for free, put it in the community free area. And if it's for sale, then it gets listed on the app, which may or may not be echoed in aspects of an app for the larger community. And as soon as someone buys it, it's the job of the seller to click, paid, and so it instantly disappears up to the last minute. And that way it saves time. Every person in the community has a sustainability rating of how many pounds of waste they are generating, why they're generating that, and what's the offset for that. When purchasing anything over a certain amount, each person will provide 3 ways to dispose or recycle it, so that there's, again, an awareness of where is this going to go. Every student is asked yearly to contribute to energy recycling in a variety of forms and study impact. This becomes part of the curriculum for the children. And every year the community will receive updates on the garbage status, and awards and penalties will be given to the 3 worst offenders and the 3 most conscientious people in the community. And this is not about punishment. This is rather about balance. So if 3 people are generating 5 times more waste than average, then whether it's a 5-hour community tree planting project, the focus is not about shame and penalizing, but rather how to move back into balance. All things we don't know what to do with will be sorted and stockpiled in the community, and anyone can use the materials for art, recycling, and the like. This is very important because if you pull things apart, you have bits of steel, and you have someone who does welding, for example, scraps of steel are useful if there's a steel scrap pile. Steel also is one of the more easy things to recycle in the larger community. So, but breaking things into bits, then you have, at the very least, a shredded packing material, that kind of thing. All soda is made on the site. This takes away soda bottle, soda cans, because by serving freshly made soda in a soda maker, you don't need to bottle it and pressurize it. You drink it fresh, and it provides a unique beverage experience for visitors. It wouldn't be as unique for people staying there, but it would be healthier because you get the fresh sodas made from local fruits grown on the property, etc. And then again, it's a unique experience of coming on the land. Materials are sorted into leftover things that anyone can use. All metals, for example, could be used for concrete reinforcement, welding, art, and even potential art recasting. All compost, of course, goes into various forms of land. All sewage is recycled on the property using a variety of protocols. Batteries and the like can go back to the manufacturer and can be stockpiled at 100 people so that once a year these types of things are taken rather than 100 different trips. So then you've reduced the energy consumption to ship something off 100 times by having one person pack everything up, the waste management person, once a year rather than 100. All drainage water that is needed is harvested during winter and used for irrigation in summer, more important in a drought, type area. And paper can be recycled in the municipal system, the larger system, but also used for a variety of community purposes. Clothing will be encouraged to be cotton because it's biodegradable and then can be shredded and composted. Shoes can be repurposed as art shoes, composted as leather, shredded for insulation as synthetic fabrics. Non-cotton clothing can be added to plastics for insulation by running it through the shredder. All wood is saved, reused for celebratory fires, art, building projects, and heating. Tin cans are discouraged. Glass on site is with reusable lids is preferred. It's washed, recycled municipally, and sometimes made into windbreaks or fences. bicycles and vehicle parts are left for remanufacture, along the lines above. So this is the paradigm, the strategy, and the protocol for reducing 90% waste. And since it costs money to consume and transform more natural resources into something, and it costs money to dispose of more of it, by reducing 90% of the waste, there's money saved on the purchase side and money saved on the disposal side, and there's also work generated. If you think of an economy as an inflow and outflow of cash, when you put money from one community member to another community member who's selling freshly made organic soda on site with a soda maker and eliminating the tin can or the glass bottle, first of all, that money is staying within the community. And second of all, waste is reduced at the same time. So it's good for the environment. It is good for the community economy, and it reduces waste.